92 Market Street here in Rockland. He was seen looking into the store on the store video surveillance. About 6 minutes later, he entered the store while there were two other white males inside the store. He took his time perusing different aisles, actually took a pair of white gloves off a shelf, took the tag off, put the white gloves on, waited for the two males to leave, approached the two females that were working at the store, showed them a handgun that he took from his waistband, pointed the gun at one of them, and informed them that they were being robbed. He left with approximately $334. He was in the store for about 3 minutes once he had pointed the gun at the women. Coincidentally enough, one of the men that were in the store earlier came back in because he had bought a scratch ticket and apparently it was a winner. Came back in to cash that ticket in. The two girls behind the counter informed him that they had just been robbed, and he actually followed the suspect up Highland Street towards Prospect. We were able to assist us in getting a better description of him. We got the 911 call. Our officers immediately flooded the area. We had 4 cars on the road at the time. The sergeant went to 7-Eleven, secured that scene, made sure that the women there were okay. The other 3 officers went to the area. We were getting 911 calls at this time of a suspicious person running around yards by Brookside Road, which is about a half a mile from the 7-Eleven store. Actually, we got 2 calls reporting that the suspect tried to get into their houses. My officers were in the area. One of the officers spotted the suspect, got out of his car, approached him, cornered him because he got up against the fence. My officer drew his service revolver, pointed it at him, told him to get on the ground. He refused to comply with the commands and in fact put his arms up and challenged the officer to shoot him and walk at the officer. At that time, the veteran officer, thank God, reholstered his weapon, took out his taser, deployed the taser, but it was ineffective because he had a sweatshirt on, a heavy sweatshirt, so it was not effective. At that point, a foot pursuit ensued. The other 2 officers joined in the foot pursuit. At one point, the suspect made it around the houses that they were behind, came out to one of the Rockland police cruisers that was parked on Brookside Road, got into that vehicle. The officers approached from the front of the vehicle, drew their service weapons, pointed it at the suspect in the vehicle. He backed up for about 12 feet, put it in drive, and then sped towards the officers. The officers, knowing, using their discretion and good judgment, stepped aside, and 2 of the other officers hopped in their car and began a pursuit of this vehicle. The pursuit went through Rockland into Norwell, Hanover, Weymouth, and then onto Route 3. Abington and the state police had been monitoring the transmissions regarding the armed robbery and the foot pursuits that were taking place. So Abington was quick on scene to join into the vehicle pursuit. Unfortunately, on East Water Street, at the bad curve, that Abington vehicle crashed and flipped over. I'm happy to know at this time that Abington officer is okay. He was taken to the hospital. I understand he's home and doing well. The pursuit continued on to Route 3, where a Weymouth cruiser was involved. I understand that Weymouth cruiser crashed on Route 3 as well, and I'm told that officer is doing well also. And as you all know, the pursuit ended in Quincy at 2 different locations. The first one, we had the vehicle stopped. Unfortunately, he was able to get the car started again. They did negotiate with him for almost an hour at the first location. He was able to get the car started, get around the vehicles that were there, and he was stopped again approximately 3/4 of a mile later. And as you know, it ended in a tragic shooting. So that's all we have at this point. We are still canvassing the neighborhood for the gun that was shown at the robbery. We have not located that yet. We have 2 gun detection dogs in town right now that have been working since the crime this morning. They're still actively seeking, and we're going door to door to the neighbors in the area, searching the neighborhood and the route that we know he took because our K9 had tracked him. We don't know at this point if he had his handgun with him when he got into the police cruiser. There's a chance that during the police pursuit he threw it out the window. We don't know at this point in time. Again, a lot of stuff still happening. I just wanted to come out and let you know where we were at this point.
When you say you got the police cruiser started again, was it somehow disabled?
No. Unfortunately, we do not have remote disabling on our police cars. It's a cost thing, I guess. It's not something that we've ever really considered, but he did take off with one of our cars.
So was that car running? Was that one of the officers who was in this pursuit and left the car to engage in that pursuit?
The officer, and you've seen some video that was shot by a person from a house in the area. You can see the officers walking up and then run around the backside of the house. One of those officers, it was the officer that had presented him and drew his weapon and pointed it at him, and he kept challenging him to shoot him. So that officer was obviously a little distraught at that point. Rather than running directly back to his car, he pursued him around the house. In hindsight, maybe the wrong angle to take, but hoping that he could catch him, obviously. So
it's simply just a matter of the cars running, the speed of everything happening, the cars running, your guys are going after him, and then he just somehow gets back into that car.
Exactly. And again, they're pursuing an armed suspect who just committed an armed robbery, and who had challenged one of the officers to shoot him. So we knew that this person was pretty amped up and willing to do almost anything to get away. So.
Chief, Chief, you tell us at all where he's from or anything like that? Or is he from Rockland or the South Shore?
He's not from Rockland. I know that the district attorney from Norfolk County has not released his name yet. We have all of his information. Unfortunately, I don't want to confirm or deny anything about his... he's from this area, but he's not from Rockland.
Can you say if he's known to your police department?
Our officers that were there, that we did do a debrief this afternoon, said they all recognized him, but they didn't know his name. So he's familiar to us. He has a lengthy criminal record. So when it comes out, I'm sure you'll all figure that out.
And the rifles in the car, are they automatic or semi-automatic?
I'm sorry?
For the rifles in the vehicles?
They're semi-automatic. Yeah.
And was there one in that?
There was. Unfortunately, there was. And I actually have a picture which I'll give out. You guys can take pictures of later. But we were concerned as to how he got the rifle out of the secure mount. So they're in a metal secure mount between the two seats. There is a way for our officers to quickly access those weapons. Fortunately, he didn't figure out that way to do it. But because he had almost 3 hours in that vehicle, he was able to bend the metal brackets and able to work that rifle out because he had so much time to do it. So, and you can see by this picture just how the metal brackets are bent and stuff. I'll leave a couple copies over here. You can take a picture of it afterwards. So,
did he use the gun at all? That gun?
He did not use the gun at all. He did have it in his hands during the Quincy standoff, and when he got out of the vehicle in Quincy, he had it in both hands.
And just to verify, you said during this chase, you're not sure if he had the gun on him when the officers were chasing him.
I'm sorry.
Even though you said you challenged the officer to shoot him. Did anybody notice that?
We don't know. So he did it on 2 separate occasions here in Rockland. He did put his hands up with the first officer, then walked directly at him, with a firearm pointed at you. That's not something that a normal person would do. The second officer, he refused to take his hands out of his pockets for quite some time. He eventually complied with that, but as he did that, the officer then went to transition to taser. The guy, he turned and ran like a rabbit. And as he said this morning to me directly, he said, "I just didn't expect that." So.
And you were saying too, the suspect backed up and then drove at the officers.
Yes, he did.
At that point, that vehicle becomes a deadly weapon. How come the officers did not discharge their firearms at that moment when he was driving at the officers?
That's a great question, and I appreciate that question, and I'll tell you why. Because, as you know, there's an awful lot going on nationwide and locally with police reform right now. So one of the parts of the Massachusetts police reform is whether or not you can shoot at a fleeing vehicle. And in this case, the officers used great discretion and patience in not shooting at that. Would they have been justified? An armed robbery suspect leaving with a patrol rifle in the vehicle, probably armed? It's a very good question. It can be debated one side or the other for a very long time. I'm happy to say they did not. They exercised judgment. And I will also say that stands true for the Northeast. You notice that in the Northeast, we don't have a lot of these issues because our officers are better trained. They have better educations. A lot of them have advanced degrees. So they're able to communicate, think, process in a very short period of time. You can imagine how quickly these officers had to make a decision with a vehicle driving at them to shoot or don't shoot when they probably felt they were justified. So They exercised great discretion and restraint, in my opinion.
And do we think he was trying to get inside some people's homes in that neighborhood to hide from police, or was he trying to rob them as well?
So we don't know the exact answer. My speculation is he was trying to hide from the police, because we did have a canine tracking him, so we knew that he was in the area. Plus the number of calls that we received, we were pretty certain it was him.
When you anticipate to hear from either state police or Quincy police to see if he had the revolver that he showed at 7-Eleven, if he had it with him in the vehicle there in Quincy, because you had said that you are searching the neighborhood currently, will you continue to search until you hear from officers there in Quincy?
So we have our vehicle back here now. Quincy and the state police have processed that vehicle. It's considered a crime scene, as you know. That the handgun was not found. We do have good video of it. We do have a great description of it, and that's why we're working so hard right now to find it. But again, that could have been tossed out anywhere here in Rockland or anywhere between here and Quincy. So
you know for sure it's not in the police room?
We do know that for sure.
Any indication what he was doing before this robbery, leading up to that? It sounds like
No, the only thing I can tell you is at 6:09 this morning, he was outside 7-Eleven looking in the windows to see how many people were inside.
I'm not sure how he ended up in Rockland, because you said he's not from here.
He's not from here, but I think he spends time in the area. He's from a neighboring community, let me put it that way.
Any luck finding family or friends? Or
I don't know. I know the state police are actively working that side of it. As you can imagine, there's a lot of pieces. It's a fairly large crime scene.
So now, where are you looking for that gun, possibly? Around the 7-Eleven or Brookside Road?
From the 7-Eleven, the path that he took all the way up to the golf course, Brookside Road, all of that surrounding neighborhood, anywhere that we know that he was on foot. So we'll be getting a picture of that out at some point and requesting the public's assistance, with that as well.
Picture of the gun?
Yes. I'm sorry, my hearing is not good. How he got into the cruiser? He got into the cruiser the same way any one of us would get into the cruiser. He opened the driver's side door and jumped in. Unfortunately, the officer, in the heat of the moment, attempting to catch an armed robbery suspect, left the car unlocked. We do have a policy at the police department where you secure your vehicle every time you get out and lock it. We employ human beings, so you can imagine that the stress of the moment and the adrenaline rush that he was going through trying to catch this robbery suspect, and he just forgot to lock the cruiser.
Did that officer face any disciplinary action for that?
Potentially, yes. I don't anticipate any at this point. I anticipate more of a counseling session. That officer has gone home. He's pretty distraught, as you can imagine. He'll be given a couple of days off, then he'll be brought in, counseled by the lieutenant and the deputy chief, advised again to reread policies, things that we will handle inside. But again, I don't fault him for, really going out there and chasing somebody with a gun. So, not something everybody does when they get up in the morning.
The other officer, with the car going after them, you said the car lurched at the two, right?
Yes.
Is the other officer also going to take some time, or?
We brought them in. We've done some counseling already with them. We've given them the opportunity to take that off. Interestingly enough, one of the officers that was working last night and the car drove at was his very first night on the road by himself. So it was quite an introduction to the midnight shift here in Rockland. So.
You said Abington officer and Hanover? They're both from Canada.
Abington and Weymouth. Yes, that's correct.
They're both from Canada?
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I can tell you once his name comes out that you'll Google it and you'll see that there was a rather famous incident not that long ago. He does have an extensive criminal record. He's done time in jail. Again, I don't want to, give away. Everybody saw his picture that watched the news. I think it was Channel 7 had a fairly close-up video of him sitting inside the police car. So I'm assuming his family knows at this point, but we don't know. So we don't want it to come this way. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much.